You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast and syndicating for the A-List Online. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and what follows is a conversation between myself and Olof from the outfit Amaranthe. He's also a member of a few other bands as we discuss through the podcast episode, so do enjoy. But the main reason for the conversation was to talk about and promote the brand new album for 2018 from Amaranthe, Helix. Let's go. Morning, mate. How you going?
Hey, good evening, Andrew. Everything is going fine over here. How are you?
Yeah, good. How's the I call them the phonogrind. So how's the Australian media treating you on your phonogrind? You know, all the interviews you've got to do.
Well, it's pretty awesome. I have to say, I just got off from like a phone interview over normal mobile networks, and it was almost impossible to hear anything. So I hear you loud and clear now. So that's very comforting.
Yeah, no, cool, mate. Yeah, look, I look, as much as I can insist, it's always via Skype. The quality of the call is just so much more effective, if you like, to conduct a conversation. I agree with you totally. The amount of times that I've done interviews with people in all sorts of parts of the world, Philippines, Scandinavia, where you are, over the mobile, mate, and you can't hear a bloody thing because of the static.
No, exactly. I mean, it's a stack and then extremely low volume and then no definition whatsoever. So once again, this is a nice change.
Nah, sweet. Well, I've got a few questions to ask you because I'm actually really enjoying this album here, and I've got to be frank, mate, it's not something that I typically get into personally, and I know it's not about me, it's certainly about you guys, but what you're doing here, you're very effective with what you're doing here. You're a very good songwriter, I must say, and I was reading with interest that you handle the guitars, keyboards, and also the synthesizers, so... Mate, tell us about your role in, and I hope I pronounce your band name correctly here. Is it Amaranthe? Is that how I pronounce the band name?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay, Amaranthe, because you pretty much, you're the one steering the ship, aren't you?
I mean, it depends a little bit because I handle compositional responsibilities in terms of writing bass parts and drum parts and guitar parts and, like you said, keyboards and electronics and everything. So the arrangement parts are definitely mine, but I write everything. Like on this latest album, I wrote everything together with one of the singers, Elise, the female singer.
Yep.
And she always has a lot of great ideas, not only in terms of vocal lines, but also in terms of coming up with general ideas for compositions and where the song should be heading, and working together with her conceptually. So it's a really cool thing because I love to sit down and write music by myself, but when you're working together with somebody else, I think it really I think the combination there really turns into something more and something different.
The right person, though, and I think you're a very astute judge of character, clearly, because this lass that you've got in to sing for, and I know you've been in Forces now about 8 years with her or so. It's Elise, her name, is that correct? The other singer in the band?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Elise, yeah. So you've picked really well there with that one there, but my overall impression of you, so I want to bring it back to you again, because I always enjoy talking to somebody who's got her finger in the pie of everything that's going on and pick your brain a little bit. So you remind me
exactly.
You remind me a little bit of Andy Sneap. Okay, you know how he's doing the Judas Priest thing at the moment, because I know are you still in Dragonland? At least you've got this other project, Dragonland. You've got Night Rage, Disharmonia Mundi, and of course you've got Amaranthe. But then I noticed that you're starting to do some production associated with all of these bands. So, mate, how do you keep on top of everything that you're doing? Because there's a lot going on.
Well, I mean, sometimes it works out really well. Sometimes I can't do absolutely everything, which is just a little bit of a bummer. Dragonland is actually heading over to Australia in just a week. Okay. And I couldn't be part of that tour because I have a lot of responsibilities when it comes to Amaranthe. But just like you say, I mean, process, because obviously being a musician today, you no longer have a record label that takes care of everything like it used to be in the 80s or even the 90s. So for me, it's really interesting to see how things work in everything from, the planning and the booking of the shows to, composing the songs and recording them, aspects. Also, the marketing plans and doing press and promo and interviews. So,
yep.
And also visual design and video recordings. So it's a very, very multifaceted kind of profession, I have to say. And it's also what keeps it fresh, if you know what I mean. Because when you've been on the road for, let's say, 3 months straight, and then you come back home, just like I did very recently. It's a very, very welcome change of pace, because you go from being a touring musician with everything that entails
Yeah.
to sitting and doing like a desk job, which is challenging as well, but in a completely different aspect. So it really helps to keep things fresh.
Yeah, it does. It does. But you've got a lot of motivation too. So you're a smart bloke. I can tell that much. You've got some raw intelligence behind you, which obviously helps. But you've also got the ability to put your plans in action, to get everybody organised, to issue instructions, and to have people follow your instructions is another thing. So talk to me about your leadership style. This is a question I haven't asked before, and I thought you'd be a good one to answer it because of how much you're doing. So what sort of leaderships do you bring to all of the bands that you're overseeing and that you're a part of?
It's a very interesting question, actually, because I think every leader has a very, very different sort of leadership style, just like you say. And I think, in my view, I think it's really, really important to let everybody be part of the decision. And I think to be a great leader, you need to, first of all, you need to be able to delegate. You need to choose the right people to leave the work up to. And if you're trying to run everything by yourself, like let's say, for example, if you're micromanaging, then you're just going to end up with a lot of things on your plate. So obviously I'm doing a lot of practical things as well. And my main focus and my main ability at the end of the day is composing. So as soon as I feel like we have employed someone who is better than I at, let's say design, for example, or production, you need to also respect their competence.
Yes.
And their expertise in their respective field, and sort of step down from your, opinions and whatever. Just like with songwriting, for example. Like I said before, I write everything together with Elise, and even though I have all these fantastic ideas of where the song could be heading, I still try to keep a very open mind for when she comes with an idea, instead of dictatorially telling her that no, but this is the way that it should be. So sometimes I'm in a very strong leadership role, but sometimes I also take a backseat completely when I feel that everything is being run perfectly.
Yeah, okay. Here's another question for you. Now, I hope you don't mind me asking it and framing it this way, but Elise is a very attractive young lady. You can see that straight away. How much of the attention on the band Amaranthe do you think is about her as opposed to the musicianship? Because the musicianship's there again. It's very good.
It always becomes a bit of an aspect somehow, and it would be stupid to say that to ignore the visual things entirely. But I just said this recently in another interview that I was doing together with her, that while there has been focus, and while that has probably contributed to the to attention
Success,
to the band, exactly. If Elise was completely unattractive and didn't have any of those aspects, I would still work with her, enthusiastically, since she is the best singer and the best co-composer that I've ever worked with. So, I see it more as a, positive side effect more than, a primary thing about her, actually.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, and agreed. Yeah, it's look, it was one of the things that I first noticed, actually, because you've got Nora in Battle Beast, who's very attractive as well. So that's an aspect of that band, and then of course you've got Elise with you guys here. But I think this is my take on it, just from a marketing perspective, and I absolutely understand and acknowledge that you haven't brought her into the band from a marketing perspective. She comes as a fully fledged member with her own ideas and opinions, and she's your partner in what you're trying to achieve here. But it's a good gateway.
Exactly.
But it's a good gateway to attract attention, isn't it? And it just happens that you've got a lot of substance there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have certain advantages, I say, why not use them, as long as you're not abusing them or overly focusing on it. It's a little bit like the whole three-singer concept, for example, because another band could have tried to really, really push that and just always talk about how this is really unique and no other band is doing it, or potentially push Elise even more and just make her completely the face of the band. In some ways she is the outward face of the band, but there's always the aspect that we have 3 lead singers, and there's 6 very or at least five very talented musicians, and myself trying to keep up.
You're very modest. Very modest. All right, so I'll bring it back to Helix. What do you want it to do for
Right.
you guys? Is this the album that you think will break you open? You've already got a fairly, you've got a sizable following. I'm noticing on Facebook you've got over 300,000 followers, so congratulations on that. That's bloody hard to do. But is this the album that you think will break you even further into North America and other parts of Europe and Australia that you're yet to get to?
I mean, I hope so. At this point, just like you said, it's the fifth album, and I don't think that the band has ever thought in terms of sudden breakthroughs or
Mm.
massive increase in popularity from a record to the next. But I mean, obviously, you're sort of hoping for it, but it's not always what you're aiming for. And the really cool thing about the metal scene in general is that you're building a fundament and a foundation that is very, very strong compared to a lot of other genres. And in that sense, because I started out in the business, I guess it was 17 or 18 years ago, and to have that kind of longevity that we already had, because with Amaranthe, because if you compare to how long other bands have been around, for example, when we performed at Wacken this summer, and you look at that festival poster, most of those bands have been around for 20, 25, or even 30 to 35
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
It's kind of a reassuring thing to know that it's not like a pop act where you have a sudden breakthrough, you're the big star overnight, and
Hmm.
then 3 months later or a year later you're gone. So I while I'm still always hoping for a massive increase in the size of the band, to be blatantly honest,
Hmm.
it's also sort of reassuring to build it step by step by touring a lot and releasing new music frequently, to really have a strong foundation instead of just like this unstable sudden success, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I'll ask you this question actually because I just had a chat a couple of days ago with MT from the band The Spirit. You might know him and you might know the band. They're on Nuclear Blast, and one of the things we spoke about for quite a long time was, and it was mainly my opinions, of course, that I was sharing with him and just asking for his view on things. But look, I'm at a point where I don't listen to Iron Maiden anymore. Definitely can't listen to Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, Kiss, you name it, Judas Priest, all of those bands. I'm ready for the next lot of bands to come through and headline. So I understand we've got Parkway Drive that are starting to do it a little bit more now, but you've still got these legacy acts that have been around for close to 40 years, if you've been keeping count, that are still up the top there. And in my view, it's time for a change. So do you think that Amaranth is ready to step up and be sort of next to a headliner status? So just say if the opportunity was offered to you at, say, Bloodstock or any one of those serious European festivals, do you reckon the band's ready to take that jump up?
I will be blatantly honest and say that I think we only recently become ready, and that's a
Hmm.
lot of honesty actually for an interview. But I think that
No, it's good.
the
Yeah.
first 4 or 5 years we were still trying to figure a lot of things out, because we were combining a lot of new genres musically, and then we're also experimenting what it would really entail and what it would really mean to have three lead singers and how you work with that dynamically. And then at the same time, you're constantly building your stage production and just how you perform a live show and how you interact with the fans
Hmm.
and all those different aspects, like how you work with the lights and so on.
Yeah.
And especially recently, we have started to work with some really, really experienced and talented people in the business, like our European booking agent, and actually just very recently, Australian booking agent is also booking like Sabaton and Amon Amarth and Powerwolf and a lot of really, really and only
Cool.
big bands.
Yeah.
So the idea now is to try to bring it up to that level, because just like you said yourself, there's going to be a massive shift that is going to take place within the next 3 to 5 years, because a lot of these, let's say for example, at least 5 or 6 or 7 of the festivals that we played this summer was headlined either by Judas Priest or by Ozzy Osbourne
Yeah,
or by
that's
Iron
right.
Maiden
Yeah.
and so on. And it's not going to be physically possible for them to do that. So you can already see that with Wacken, for example. Next year's Wacken got announced with Sabaton as the headliner. And I can tell you from my perspective, it's not a coincidence, because they want to try it out and see what is it like to bring
Yeah.
some of the bigger current bands as the headliner. Does it work? And the Wacken sold out just as quickly as it always does. So there's a shift there coming, and obviously it's it's a difficult spot to get to, but we're starting to see the path a lot more clearly now, at least.
You'll be right. Good luck with it, but I think you'll be right. From what I've heard, and I've watched a few of your YouTube videos of the live performance, you've definitely got it. But I understand the pressure of headlining is very different to sort of being a band that's third or fourth on the bill, because you really only get the one opportunity first time, and then after that, it's whether or not you get rebooked or not is when you know if you've been successful or not.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much that, that counts into it as well, because it's one thing how you perform with the band and, the music that you're actually playing and so on. But if you have a really, really good setup, if you have a crew that you can trust 100% when you walk on the stage, and when you have a production, like, for example, like I mentioned with the lights, and a production that really, really works, then
Yeah.
you also have the confidence that is necessary for it. So I think after the last 7 years of touring, we have toured more than at least 98% of the bands in the European genre. So we have the experience, and we have the knowledge and the know-how. And then it's all about, sort of ensnaring enough fans
Yeah.
to get into it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And on that note about fans, what's your relationship been like with the Australian audience over the years? Have you got a lot of feedback from us over Facebook and social media?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's been. I was having this conversation with our booking agent just a couple of days ago, and it's been exactly like that. That the Australian fans have probably been the most, to be honest, have been the most vocal
Cool.
about us coming over there from countries that we haven't played yet, and we get messages from basically all over the world. But there's always the daily messages from the
Mm.
Australian fans. So we can tell also from from streaming and album sales and whatever, that there is definitely an interest, and it actually
Mm.
makes sense for us to really try to build something in Australia.
I'd love to see you out here. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I think a good partnership. I'm trying to think of a band to work with, but there are so many. We mentioned Sabaton. It could be Gojira. Anybody really that I think you guys would make a really good partnership with. And I live in Brisbane, or just outside of Brisbane, on the coast, and we've got something called River Stage here, which is in the city. Really nice. Really nice venue for a gig because it's open air. I can really see you guys owning that. A band just before Megadeth go on stage or something like that to as a really good co-headliner. So just plant the seed for that now, and we'll wait and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's always important that when you're trying to like get into a new market, like when we played South America
Mm.
last year, we were touring with Tarja, for example,
Yeah,
and who is just absolutely massive in South America,
yeah,
and it becomes a really good springboard, so that the next time around that you come around as a headliner, people are already aware of what you can do, not only on the album but also in a live context.
All right, mate. I better let you go. Thanks for the chat. I really appreciate it. Thanks for answering my questions. I know I'm a bit more detailed than what you might be used to, but I'm just
Yeah, but it's
curious.
really interesting. Yeah, but it's really interesting to talk about different aspects instead of just explaining where the band comes from and how we started and everything. So it was really interesting, Andrew. Thank you so much.
No, congratulations too. I meant what I said before. I'll be following your career actually from afar, and I hope we can catch up when you come to Australia or if I go over to Europe, mate, because I do admire what you're doing. I do think it takes a lot of hard work, dedication, and commitment, and you got your head screwed on the right way. So I just think it's forward for you from here, mate. So congratulations on the work you've done so far, and good luck moving forward.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew, and looking forward to sit down and elaborate on these things when hopefully when we come to Brisbane next year.
Yeah, I hope our paths cross again, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
No worries, mate. All the best. Thank you.
Yeah, have a great evening. Bye
You too.
bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
You have been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast and syndicating for the A-List Online. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that was a conversation that featured Olaf from the outfit Amaranthe. Thank you so much for listening.